budget views. What do I think about the budget that I put down my wish list? And what do I think what happened? Well, we obviously know what the market thinks, which said Sensex dons best B-day suit, posts second highest rise ever of 2,315 points. However, what it forgets is markets may cheer, but as farm laws show, test is street and house. Opposition calls it bid to sell family silver. Let me just say this. Sensex going up tells me that once again, this is the same old wine. The same old wine in a new bottle. The reason I say that is, again, it's for the corporates, for the FIIs, for the FPIs. And since I already told you yesterday on my last broadcast that there is a huge disconnect between the Wall Street or the Mid Street and the Main Street. And this actually shows this, right? Everybody's jumping in joy. It's this budget obviously is for the corporates. But here again, it's really, in my opinion, I don't know, it's just the same old thing, lots of disinvestment goals, loss of, of course, the one indication is that they're not going to really focus on the budget deficit, knowing the kind of COVID situation we are in. But let's just say, why it got it wrong is what we've been always saying. The rest of the world knows that the COVID has produced a demand-supply shock and not the supply side. Unfortunately, the narrow thinking in this government continues to think that it is the supply side that will get India out of these problems. Atmanirbhar, for example. Atmanirbhar is nothing but, everybody doing his own thing and pushing it. The government ain't going to help you. That's what Atmanirbhar is. Okay, we might have some FIIs, we might have some FDI and all that. But till we create, let's just put it this way, till we create demand, this is going to be short-lived, and all this corporate exuberance is all about higher profits. Higher profits because of reduced costs, and it is not doing anything for the employment. And this is as like Roshan Kishore writes, where the budget gets India's economy wrong. He says taxes are you're going to hear this. Taxes are a fraction of income. This means the budget itself assumes that personal and business incomes in 2021-22 will not reach levels which should have been achieved in 2021. Lower incomes will also mean lower demand. Okay. The second, he says, the central spending should have increased to at least 35.7 lakh crore to keep it unchanged in real terms. The fact that it has not happened implies that the 2021-22 budget entails a negative fiscal stimulus to the economy. Important, irrespective of what everybody is going to town about. If one reads both set of numbers together, the macroeconomic takeaway is clear. The budget has pinned its hope on supply side economics while the economy is facing a demand side crisis. What explains the negative fiscal stimulus in the wake of contraction, given the government's economic philosophy even during the pre-pandemic slowdown, this is not surprising. It is believed that the slowdown was not because of a demand side problem and that the solution was to be found in supply side measures and a formalization push in the economy. But the approach may have worsened the economic situation and will continue to do so. While these policies might play a role in keeping the fiscal deficit under control despite a bleak revenue scenario, there will be little impact in terms of fresh economic activity and hence boosting aggregate demand. And this is something you have to note. What are the stuff that went wrong? Middle class wears a frown, waited but nothing for us. So middle class has been junked. Okay, what else have we got? Petrol, diesel, 15 other commodities attract cess to fund agri-infra development. While this is going to hurt the common man, his cost of travel is going to go up, his disposable income further under pressure. And what does Jahangir Aziz write? A reckoning postponed. Budget puts welcome emphasis on health infrastructure, privatization, but lack of income support continues. In the details, while there is a welcome emphasis on public health, on improving the financing of infrastructure projects, and on privatizing banks and insurance companies, the glaring omission is the continued lack of income support. Why is this important? Underlying the strong headline recovery and growth, imbalances in the economy have widened significantly. While the budget is constructive and has helped to allay fears of excessive fiscal tightening, It did not go far enough to mitigate the tail risk that the current economic recovery does not turn into a dead cat bounce. What it says is, excessive fiscal tightening, it did not go far enough to mitigate the tail risk that the current economic recovery does not turn into a dead cat bounce. There is every likelihood of it turning into a dead cat bounce. I had said spend on education, but hey, guess what? Government cuts proposed education spending by rupees 6,000 crores. Okay, we were talking about putting money in people's hands, but with recovery taking roots, job scheme outlay cut to 73,000 crores. It's interesting. While they've increased it from the previous budget, it is way below the actual spend of 2021. You say, how do I say that? However, the finance minister has allocated 73,000 crore for NREGS in the union budget 21-22. The allocation for the next financial year is 18% higher than the 61,500 crore provided in the budget estimates of BE 2021, but is 34% lower than the revised estimate of 111,500 crores, folks. Same thing for the the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. The budget for 21-22 has been allocated at 15,000 crores, less than the 19,500 crores of the new estimate of actual spend of 2021. This year the allocation, however, is slightly higher than the last. So again, playing with figures. And as Yamini Iyer, same thing, decoding the budget and the economics of welfare. In this context, the FY22 budget ought to have increased expenditure for welfare, provided for an inclusive social protection architecture, and protects vulnerable groups, especially migrant workers, and increased capital expenditure. At first glance, the government has only done the last. The pandemic has disproportionately impacted India's poor and vulnerable. The hope was that the budget would, by adopting an expansionist fiscal stance, respond to their needs while putting the economy back on track. It has not. And I tend to agree with that. And Praveen Chakravarti, obviously a political player, the government's arithmetic jugglery cast a shadow over the budget's right direction. It's no secret that India's economic situation is ugly, with soaring inequality, a choked financial system, and a nervous private sector. Prudent public investment and a robust social safety net were what can prevent India from falling off the precipice of the economic cliff. While the budget was directionally right, the government's penchant for headlines, sophistry, and exaggeration cast a shadow on budget 21-22. And I tend to agree with this. The whole reason is this government is caught up with supply side economics. It just doesn't believe, or just doesn't have the heart, just does not have the heart to understand that it is the demand that is suffering. It's the poor, it's the unemployment, it's the lower middle class, the underclass that need help. And as Chetan Bhagat had said, as I said, if 5,000 rupees was to go into everybody's pocket, in a family between 20,000 rupees, it would absolutely have a boom time for the economy and would help the corporates. But the budget did get some stuff right. Again, projections and goals for disinvestment, listing of LIC. But some of the points that really caught my fancy was that I think would do well. Foreign money to give infra companies a lift. So basically, foreign money is going to be allowed into infrastructure. In fact, I think a lot of foreign companies, FDI, should be actually allowed into existing companies. The reason I say this is because it seems like on the greenfield basis, none of the global infrastructure companies are willing to come into India, essentially because of the corruption involved. But foreign money is critical for infrastructure. Not going to happen without that. What's the other thing? Like I said, railways, critical. 2 lakh crore infra push to put railways on fast track. Important. Also monetize, as I said, the east-west and north-south dedicated freight corridors, the airport, the stations, and all the railway land. Absolutely a humdinger as an economic force multiplier. What's the other thing that I think is very interesting? Is local aircraft leasing takes off. SOPs may see companies shifting to India or local ones coming in. Again, very important, as India ends up being one of the largest in the future, going into the future is projected to be the largest market for aviation, right? One of the largest, right? What's the other thing that we got right? Is this, which is standard in every project, only hope from budget, more infra projects that will provide us employment, infra and more infra. And because of that, you had industry captains welcome hike in public spending, which is another important thing. And in the FDI, this new policy of giving SOPs to these foreign players, especially in the manufacturers of mobiles, and it should be extended to further telecom equipment, should include laptops and computers, is beginning to pay some dividends. But for that, we really need to improve the ease of doing business, not just on the books of the World Bank, but in reality. That's not what's happening, and you really need to create tax laws. And this budget should have mentioned something about retroactive taxes, but it did, and that kind of scares me. And like I said, in railways looks to monetize dedicated freight corridors, something really interesting, important. And what other stuff, right, is that I found really interesting, which I think can act as a fiscal stimulus if it gets fiscal stimulus, and also at the same time improving demand for new automobiles and spare parts and a lot of employment, is this. Coming soon, a vehicle scrapping policy. Auto industry smells money in scraps. Absolutely, I think if this policy can be so devised that you can actually have the government actually creates a fund to pay for buying all these old scrap heaps and then selling it to the corporate, who then converts breaks it down and converts and breaks it down and takes all the scrap and makes it into product like steel, etc. It's a winner for all. In the taxes, I would have thought last year has been disastrous for personal taxes. I wish the government had created a 2 years base, because a lot of people's incomes would have dropped drastically between last year and this year and the year going forward. And I think the government should have actually done that to further enhance the money in the hands of ordinary people. Instead of cutting tax rates, what they should have done is basically said that for this year, because it's a special year, we will take an average of 2 years' income for taxability. That would have been important. What other thing I said, we need to spend on defense. On the face of it, it seems that we have rupees 4.78 lakh crore allocated for defense, capital outlay up by 19%. The key is, I don't know much about it. I've not read the fine print yet. But on the face of it, it seems finally the capital outlay budget has gone up by 19%. Is that good enough? It probably could be, as long as we now go for a mix of leasing large platforms, our own Atmanirbhar and manufacturing domestically, and new acquisitions. That is what's important. And it says counter the dragon, military gets funds to pursue modern code. So I think the defense, the railways came out looking okay. Disappointed in terms of education, absolute disappointment in terms of demand creation. I don't think that's going to happen. As far as disconnect between the main street and the Mint Street continues and heightened by this budget, that's going to get worse. So all in all, what do I give this budget? A thumbs up, a thumbs parallel, or a thumbs down? I think probably I'm going to go with a one parallel thumb and one thumbs down, because in more ways than one, this budget has not, in my view, lived up to the expectations of the critical crisis facing this nation, which is demand creation. It has done everything else, has made all the necessary changes, it has continued doing reforms, but it is still balking away from demand creation, folks. Jai Hind.